I don't suppose you have enough money to send me home. Or to feed me, even.
Hello to all the classic people that are returning. I'm glad you're back. I want to welcome any new visitors. As a technical note, references and citations are listed for each show on the site at classicmovierev.com. Today on the Classic Movie Reviews podcast, we are taking on Thieves Highway 1949. This film noir is rated 7.6 on imdb.com. On RottenTomatoes.com, it has 100% on the tomato meter with only 7 ratings and 78% on audience approval. Again, I think this movie is a little better than that. When the film was released, New York Times film critic Bosley Crothers said, as part of a larger review, quote, "But particular thanks for this crisp picture should go to Messrs. Bezerides and Dashin for their keen writing, well-machined construction, and sharpness of imagery. Once again, Mr. Dashin, who directed The Naked City, has gone forth into actual settings for his backgrounds. Onto the highways and the city streets, the orchards and teeming production markets of California and San Francisco. He has got the look and feel of people and places in the produce world. You can almost sense the strain of trucking and smell the crated fruit. More than that, he has got the excitement and the tension of commerce today. Thieves Highway is a first-class melodrama which just misses, yes, just misses being great," unquote. And later he says, quote, "Valentina Cortese, a smooth new actress from Italy, who plays a professional siren with tremendous fluency and feminine charm. A role which could have been banal is made adult and intriguing by her. Nor should we neglect Millard Mitchell, Jack Oakey, Joseph Pevney, in lesser roles as muscular, hard-bitten truckmen, nor, for that matter, all the cast," unquote. I couldn't agree more with the last part of that quote. We have a lot of returning actors, so let's get to it. Actors.
Right, and I'm a Shakespearean actor.
Richard Conte, who is always very solid, played returning veteran Nick Garkos. He did seem a little long in the tooth for this part. Conte was first covered when he played a stinker in They Came to Cordura, 1959. Lee J. Cobb was great as the heel, Mike Figlia. Cobb's performance was very believable. Cobb was first covered in another film noir, The Garment Jungle, 1957. Millard Mitchell played a small-time trucker, Ed Kenny. It was quite a change to see this amazing actor playing an on-the-edge street guy, as I have only known him as the General from 12 O'Clock High, 1949, where he was first reviewed. Morris Karnofsky was in a small role as the legless Yanko Garkos. This is another actor that I've not seen often and only really know him from the reviews of Film Noir's Dead Reckoning, 1947. Percy Helton showed up for a few seconds as a roadside bartender. It is always fun to hear his distinctive voice. Helton was first covered in the film noir The Setup, 1949. Valentina Cortese played a hooker with a heart of gold, Rika. Cortese was born in Italy in 1923. According to her film list on imdb.com, her first film was in 1941. That must have been hard to do considering all the lead that was flying around at the time. Cortese worked her way up through the Italian film industry until the late 1940s when she scored big with Les Miserables, 1948, and Tempesta su Pariga, 1948. Her first international film was the British movie The Glass Mountain, 1949. She was then brought to Hollywood and did quite well in the film noirs Thieves Highway, 1949, and The House on Telegraph Hill, 1951. Also, she was in the crime drama The Barefoot Contessa, 1954. Cortese returned to Europe and from the mid-1950s into the 1970s, and she worked with the best directors such as Truffaut and Fellini. Films during this time include La Amici, 1955, Juliet of the Spirits, 1965, and Day for Night, 1973. For the last of these, she was nominated for a Best Supporting Actress Oscar. She played Queen Erdene, Violet, in The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, 1988, which, if I remember correctly, is the crazy freeform moon scene with Robin Williams. Cortese died in 2019. Story.
Let me explain. There is too much. Let me sum up.
Nick Garkos, Richard Conte, returns home from the Navy. He has a lot of money he has saved and is very happy. He hears his father, Yankos Garkos, Morris Karnofsky, singing as he cooks. His mother, Parthena Garkos, Tamara Shaney, is happy for his return. He asks the whereabouts of his girlfriend, Polly Favor, Barbara Lawrence, and why his dad is not at work. Polly comes in and everyone is happy. He gives her a doll with an engagement ring and plans to use his money to go into business with Polly's dad. When he pulls out a pair of slippers for his dad, there are some strange reactions.
These I got for Pop, all the way from China, Mandarin slippers. The Chinese have small feet. I had a tough time trying to get a size to fit your number 12s, Pa. Here, try them on, see how they fit. What's the matter? Did I say something bad? All I said was try them on.
Yanko shows that he is in a wheelchair and doesn't have legs. Nick wants to know what happened. Yanko says he left a load of tomatoes with Mike Figlia, Lee J. Cobb, on consignment. When he returned, instead of getting the money, he gets a drinking party. Yanko wakes up with his truck crashed and no money. Figlia says he paid. All of the witnesses worked for Figlia. Since Yanko didn't need the truck anymore, he sold it to Ed Kinney, Millard Mitchell. However, Ed has not paid for the truck. Nick goes to see Ed so he can repossess his father's truck. He plans on getting the money out of Figlia. Ed says he will pay in full in 2 days. Nick demands the keys back. Ed says he has a contract for the first load of Golden Delicious apples. Ed says he has 2 partners that are paying for the apples just to find the location of the first farm to produce. Rather than fight with Ed, Nick decides to partner with Ed and go after Figlia in San Francisco.
They go for them in San Francisco?
They eat apples in Frisco. They ain't snobs. They'd grab them up like that.
You think Mike Figlia might be interested?
That chiseler. He'd be so crazy to get him, he might even make a straight deal.
As Ed's 2 other partners, Pete, Joseph Peavney, and Slob, Jack Oakey, show up, Nick and Ed make a handshake deal, with Nick putting up 1,200 clams. Ed tells Pete and Slob that the deal is off because the farmer already sold. Nick warns Ed not to try and double-cross him. Ed sends Nick to buy a war surplus truck. They plan to leave early and will be on the road for 36 hours. Ed and Nick pick up the apples from a hard-working Polish family. The universal joint on Ed's truck is making noises. Ed gets $1,200 from Nick and only gives $900 instead of the agreed-upon price of $1 a box. The farmer freaks out and starts ripping crates off the truck. Ed makes Nick pay the full price to the family. Pete and Slob show up and are a little sore about the deal being broken. Nick tells them that they are going north, so the others should go south and no city is flooded with apples. Of course, they plan on following Nick and Ed with the half load of apples that they are able to get from the farmer. Nick takes the lead in his truck. Pete realizes that Ed's truck is having problems. Nick drives into the night, always pushing the speed. One of Nick's tires blows and he runs off the road into soft sand. Not quicksand. Nick starts changing the tire, but he doesn't account for the soft sand when placing his jack. The jack slips and pins him under the truck. Then the tire pops, forcing his face into the sand. Right in time, Ed arrives and digs him out of the sand and removes him from under the truck. Ed uses the water bag from the front of his radiator to clean up Nick. The trucks get back on the road with Nick fighting sleep every mile. He finally makes it into San Francisco and to the fruit market ahead of Ed. He has orders to wait for Ed to make a deal. Nick falls asleep in line and has to be shaken awake. A man that works for Figlia notices his name. Nick leaves his truck alone in a loading dock while he goes to check prices. In my limited Italian, I believe one man says Figlia is a brutal animal.
I find Mike Figlia.
Mike Figlia? Quel brutto animale, quell'imbroglione, quel ladro che ruba anche dalla mamma sua. Quella è la vergogna di tutti i buoni italiani, è un imbroglione! Oh!
What'd he say?
He says Mike Figlia stinks.
Midge, Hope Emerson, is wheeling and dealing with Figlia and wants apples. He doesn't have any.
What do you mean, $12 a crate?
That's gold.
I don't care if it is golden matter. People ain't going to pay 2 bits an ear to eat this stuff.
Okay, I'll give you 10 crates at 12 and 5 at 8.5.
You're so nice to me. I'll tell you what. I'll take it if you make me a deal on 20 boxes of Golden Delicious.
I'll tell you what, I'll give you just one bite. He ain't got no Golden Delicious.
No apples, no corn. If you're going to take me, it's got to be worth it.
The man that saw the name tips off Figlia to Nick. Suddenly, Nick's front tire is flat. Figlia and his men inspect Nick's apples, and he finally sees the knife cut on the tire. Figlia offers to take the apples on consignment. He offers $2 a box, but Nick says he has to wait for his partner. Figlia threatens to have the truck towed, and Nick stands up for himself. 114 miles out, Ed is broken down and putting more wire on his universal joint. Pete and Slob show up and offer to take his load. Ed sends them away and gets back on the road. Nick is drinking coffee in a cafe when a lean hooker, Rika, Valentina Cortese, comes in and starts being extravagant in his direction. Fortunately, Nick is not interested. Rika invites Nick to her room so he can rest. Nick is dead on his feet and finally accepts the offer, but only to sleep. Nick has a shot with Rika, which seems an odd thing to do for a sleepy guy. She starts rubbing his shoulders, but he shuts her down. Nick passes out on Rika's bed. She sees the wounds on his neck and heads out thinking he is going to die. Figlia is complaining to the cop about Nick's truck being parked in front of his place. Rika shows up and Figlia shoves her out of sight. She has been paid by Figlia to get Nick off the street, but she complains that he is hurt. Figlia gives her the money and says that Nick is her problem. The local cop sees the tire cut and won't let the truck be towed right away. Figlia orders the men to unload the truck. He starts selling the apples to buyers. Rika goes back and wakes Nick. Rika treats his neck and she likes him without his shirt on.
Mamma mia, that's a spicy meatball.
They start getting kissy face and she tells him that Figlia is stealing his apples. Nick heads to the truck. Ed is about 52 miles out and is still being followed by Pete and Slob. Midge makes Figlia tell Nick that he sold the apples for $6.50 a crate. Nick wants the entire amount and refuses to take half. Figlia figures out that Rika tipped Nick off. He tells Nick that he paid Rika to get him off the street. Figlia says Rika is planning on robbing him. Nick tells the story of his father being robbed. Finally, Figlia gives Nick some cash and a check for the rest. Ed is still having trouble with his truck. Pete and Slob stop by to mock him. They offer to take his load for a little more than half. Nick calls Polly and invites her to San Francisco to get married.
Oh, excuse me, Nick. I was talking to Daddy.
Yeah, I know what he wants to know. Tell him, but tell it to him easy. $4,000.
$4,000. She'll come.
Of course I'll come.
Rika comes in the restaurant and hears the call. Polly makes Nick say he loves her and all of the men mock him. I love you so much. If I don't kiss your face soon, I'm gonna die. Godfather reference. Nick follows Rika onto the street and he wants to reward her by buying her a drink. They go to some place that necessitates walking across the rail yard. They know Rika at the bar. She is sad because she thought Nick was going to be her boyfriend. Rika says that Polly only wants money.
Does she have pigtails down here?
You know, Italian-American, a cat's a cat. Do you mind if I don't discuss my girl with you?
That's right. In such company, what can you talk about? Me? I never had pigtails, see? Let her have them. Money. That's what I want, lots of money. Oh, scusa. I have to say Polly's name again. Polly and I have one thing in common. She loves money, too.
I don't want to talk about
How stupid if she marries you for your money. Give him the bill. He likes to pay.
After the drink, they walk back into the rail yard. A couple of goons follow them. Nick and Rika start kissing, and the goons jump on Nick. His wallet falls out, and Rika runs away with it. The goons catch her, taking the wallet. The beaten Nick slowly makes it to his feet and realizes that he has been robbed. He heads to Rika's place, but she's not there. Sometime later, she comes dragging in. She is very happy to see Nick and says she has been out looking for him. He chokes her and pulls her hair, demanding his money. He faints, and she later tells him that the men worked for Figlia. Ed's truck is still struggling as he climbs a high hill. Pete and Slob know it is a matter of time until the truck breaks down and they get his load. He crests the hill and starts down the steep slope. The universal joint on Ed's truck breaks. He can't downshift the truck. The brakes are not strong enough to stop the truck. At last, the truck flies off the road, turning side over side and scattering apples all over. The truck bursts into flames and Ed is killed. Pete and Slob try to get to him, but they can't. Polly shows up at the passenger pier in the morning. Rika comes to pick her up.
You are Polly Faber?
Yes?
I am Rika, and Nick asked me to meet you.
How nice.
How do you do? We'll go to the market. It's only a minute out of the way. Nick and I are looking for a friend. Come, please.
If you don't mind my asking, what's Nick doing in your room?
He's resting.
Oh, I hope he's comfortable. I hope...
Oh, yes, he's comfortable.
I hope I'm not intruding. I'm beginning to wonder what I came up here for.
I thought it was to get married.
Meow. Figlia gives Pete and Slob $2 a box when they arrive. Slob feels sorry for Ed. Figlia entices Pete to go pick up Ed's apples. Figlia offers 50 cents a crate for the wrecked apples. Slob wants nothing to do with the crashed apples, and their partnership dissolves. Figlia and 2 of his men go with Pete to get the wrecked apples. Rika is gigging Polly all the way to her apartment. She lets Polly know that Nick was robbed. Polly is making big plans for the wedding, although Nick doesn't have any money now. She has also already quit her job. Rika is having a fun time in the shower listening. Polly acts like Rika didn't tell about the robbery. She then rages on Nick like everything was his fault. She digs into him, saying she would go hungry for the rest of her life if she was with Nick. Polly walks out.
I don't suppose you have enough money to send me home. Or to feed me, even. You see, I'm hungry. But I'd rather go hungry one morning than for the rest of my life.
Aren't women wonderful?
Nick starts raging on Rika. She recommends he go to the police rather than to go after the men that beat him and robbed her.
Mitch and Frenchie, where do they live? Where do they live?
New Bay Hotel. But don't go there. To them, life is very cheap. Go to the police.
Aren't you afraid if I go to the police?
Go to the police.
I can't figure you out. 1 minute you're... What do you want from me?
I want for you not to be hurt. Nick, go to the police. French and Mitch, they have ways. They can kill, so if you look like an accident, they will follow you all the way when you drive home. If you get tired and want to sleep a little, they will push your brake and make your truck roll back into crash.
When she tells him how they kill, Nick realizes that these are the men who made his father lose his legs. Nick runs to Figlia's, and Slob tells him what has happened to Ed. He also tells that Pete is going after the remaining apples. Rika comes running down, begging Nick not to go. He can't start the truck, so Slob gets in with him, and they head to the wreck site. Rika calls the police. In a roadside bar, Pete, Figlia, and his 2 guys are celebrating. Pete doesn't look too good. Figlia gives Pete the blood money. Nick and Slob come in, and Figlia laughs at them. Nick makes Figlia tell that he paid $6.50 a crate. Figlia pulls out a hatchet. A hatchet? Who carries a hatchet? Really? Slob beats it out of his hand. Nick gives Pete a lecture.
Got no right to get rough, Pete. You agreed to it. A deal's a deal.
That's right. You got your money, so shut up. Now listen, cocky boy, you got your money. At least 10 witnesses know you got it.
That's right. I gotta shut up. Pete's gotta shut up. How about Ed? How about Ed? 4 bits a box. How about Ed?
Nick then smashes Figlia's hand with the handle of the hatchet and asks what about Ed. Nick is about to chop Figlia's fingers off, but Pete stops him. Figlia runs, but Nick catches him and starts pitching him a beating. The bartender, Percy Helton, comes out and yells about the drunks doing damage. Figlia tries to pay his way out, but Nick keeps beating him until he is down. The cops arrive, pushing a man that can identify Figlia. The cops tell Nick he can't take the law into his own hand. They arrest Figlia et al. And leave Nick free. Back in San Francisco, Rika is drinking beer with a bunch of guys near the dock. Nick comes in and says, "She's with me." He thanks her and tells her to come with him. They leave the bar laughing and ride away in his truck. Nick says they will be married when they get to his home. I'll be right back with conclusions and the world-famous short summary following a word from our sponsors. Summary. According to IMDb.com, this film is a subgenre of film noir known as film gris. The term meaning gray film was coined by Tom Anderson and includes films that have a left-wing leaning. These films are defined as gray if they, quote, offer a leftist criticism of society in general and of capitalism in particular. They typically examine such themes as the psychological damage of class, the false promise of middle-class happiness, and the pitfalls of materialism, unquote. Two of the actors in this film were part of the group theater 1931 to 40. Many people from the group theater were later called before the Un-American House Un-American Activities Committee, including Lee J. Cobb and Morris Karnowski. Cobb named names, and Karnowski refused, and he was blacklisted. So it is reasonable to assume that this film has strong anti-capitalist leanings. World-famous short summary? Hooker with a heart of gold? Not the way to bet. Hope you enjoyed today's show. You can find connections to social media and email on the site at classicmovierev.com or in the podcast show notes. If you enjoyed this show, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you've already subscribed, you can tell a friend, colleague, or family member about the show or leave a review at Apple Podcasts. It really helps the show get found. If you want to comment, suggest a movie, or help out, contact me by email at jec@classicmovierev.com. Beware the Moors.